Del, you want to tell us a story?
He knows me. I thought we got them all out in the earlier podcast pretty good.
No.
I don't want to repeat myself.
We heard some really good ones once you, I don't know, came over for dinner that next time and you were like, hey, I couldn't say this on the podcast, but here's a couple stories.
Oh, I was trying to think which one.
Christmas, I think it was.
It might have been at Christmas, yeah.
We don't want you to incriminate yourself.
Yeah.
Del Green, Corey Ryder,
How do you do, Corey?
Right, nice to meet you.
Casey Moore,
Hi, Casey.
Dale, nice to meet you.
and you obviously know that guy on the couch.
Yeah.
How was last deer season for you?
Well, I have a really bad ankle. I think you guys know that, and it slowed me down terribly, and it probably miss tracking deer, which is kind of what I did all my life. I'm pushing 82, and it just happened so quick that it doesn't bother me much. If you told me to go down to your place and get something, I'd go get it for you, but I'd hurt by the time I got back up here. So I'm limited and have to live with it. So last year, actually happened before that. I wasn't getting around good, but none of you here will ever quit. As long as you could get two crutches and keep going, I can tell already you'll never quit. So I was in that, and I was over in New Hampshire and thought I found something really good for sign not too far away, and there was a lot of sign, and so I put a blind up just before the end of the season in New Hampshire, 2 days to go, and I thought I had it in a pretty good place, and I sat in it that evening for maybe 2 hours, and just before dark, all of a sudden a buck, and the buck was in front of the doe. It wasn't a big one, about a six pointer, came up over the bank right where their trail was and turned broadside to me, probably 35 yards, and I didn't do it. It wasn't what I wanted, and I said, boy, this place is hot. So I left, and in leaving, I scared some deer out of this area. I saw the flags, and so I'm going to be there tomorrow morning, and I should back up a little. The guy that gave me permission to hunt on that land told me, I didn't know him, and he said, I'll let you hunt, but you keep out of the way of access into certain places. I don't want the logging trucks hung up because you're parked there. And I want you to hunt respectfully, follow the law books. And thirdly, I'd like you to know that I do like venison. So I really had a desire to bring him a good portion of a deer. So I've never been one that could sit all day. I never have in my life, but the next morning I was in there at dark, and I sat there a long time, and then I got out and stretched him. And I basically spent the whole day there, and I don't think in all my years I ever did that anywhere. And I never saw anything and get down, but I was, that last hour, and nothing came out. I was really bummed out about it. And so next year I'm going to spend some time. That was this year. The bear were in there so much so in apple trees amongst old country that had cellar holes, the rocks, cellar holes, stone walls and stuff. And I really thought this is going to be cool. So I get in there this year early, and there was 7,000 piles of bear poop, everywhere. because of the apples. Oh my God! And I search around, and there's no deer tracks. So obviously, I was smart enough to don't even hunt. I went back a few times to check, but not until it got really cold near the end of the season did I see the deer returning, and I didn't really see any good sign. There was no big deer in that area. We had a little snow, and I should have seen something, so kind of gave up on it. Muzzleloader season in Vermont, I hunted some, but I wasn't seeing anything. And if you boys remember, I'm sure you probably hunted it. It rained the last Sunday of the muzzleloader season, but I went and I put a rain jacket on, raincoat. It was raining when I went in the woods, and I went quite a ways, and I realized I didn't have any fluorescent orange on my back. So I stood there thinking, oh shit, I got to go back. Then I decided I'm probably the only idiot that's going to be out in the woods, including the wardens. So I kept going, and so I got over to the river, and I was just still hunting around, and I knew there was some deer in there, and I didn't see anything, but I found a place that I'd never really found before where the deer were crossing the river, and had been pretty steady, and I don't know why I never found it before. So, like the idiot I am, I set my muzzleloader down, and I started walking around, not hunting, just going up and down the river, looking how they were doing this and that. I'm getting ready for next year. So my gun's a little ways from me, and I walk back over, and I get about from here to Joey, and I just happen to glance up, and there's two doe standing there looking at me. So I don't move, and I don't move, but I keep looking behind them. It's obvious they came across the river, and they just started to walk away. Finally, when they did, I went towards my gun, and the 6-point buck comes up over the river, and it was raining like heck. It was probably 1:30, and I was probably from me to you from my gun, and there's no doubt maybe I wouldn't have hit it, but if I had went really slow, I think I would have got the gun and got a shot, but it again wasn't quite what I wanted, and I just stood there, and I said something to the deer. We carried on a one-sided conversation, and he didn't move. And I said, you're making a hell of a mistake, because I got a gut feeling you're going to be here next year, and you aren't going to do well if you are. He's there, and I see a tail switch, and I'm like, are you listening to me? His ears would flick and stuff. And so I did not shoot the deer. He finally kind of bounded off and caught up with the does, and I thought, well, for a season that I wasn't having much fun, that was a great way to end it. It doesn't always go your way, but if you have some fun, and especially if it gives you something for next year. So,
Little fuel.
yeah.
Did you make it back up in where you normally hunt at all this year?
No, I really miss it. I'm doing better than I was. I've been throughout every hospital between here and Boston trying to get my ankle repaired without it laying me up for a long period of time. And I've just had a guy in New Hampshire that I was told to visit, and I sat down with him, and he was kind of a gruff person. I didn't like him at first, and he said, "Why are you here?" I said, "Because I hurt." So, why do you hurt? I didn't. What do I say? I said, "Because I broke things and they're not mended well, and after being fused, it went the heck on me." And he said, "But I'm asking you why you hurt." I didn't know what he was looking for, and I said, "I don't know quite where you're going." He said, "You're hurt because your nerves are telling you that you hurt." I said, "Okay." So why do you listen to people that want to change this and that and replace your ankle, which is a very difficult, especially at your age? And I said, I don't know. I'm just looking for something. He said, well, you hurt because the nerves are telling you that. If you tell the nerves to stop doing that, don't you think that would help? I said, yeah. He said, so I'm going to kill one of your nerves if you want me to. And I might not hit the right one. And we'll do it again and again until we hit them. And I can only do one a month. So it wasn't fun. But he brought out a thing of your ankle, and it had all these nerves running down it. You can't be sure exactly which one, but he said, I will hit the right one before we're done. So I came away feeling better about 2 days later, and I know I'm walking a touch better. I know I am, and so I'm really upbeat to continue this, and I'm looking forward to maybe chasing some deer next year.
That's good.
If it's a big thing in your life, like every one of you sitting here, it's pretty hard to let go. Look at your father. He shouldn't be here anyway. And he'll never quit. And obviously, I don't believe he'll die at it because he tried to do that once. Yeah. So enjoy it while you can, guys.
What would you do differently, Del? What would you tell your 30-year-old self? What would you do anything differently?
Actually, Joey, I really am sorry that I worked in the field that I worked in. I loved what I did for work, but I never had time off. And I can look back and I wish to God I'd never done that. I made decisions that didn't allow me to do the thing I love more than everything else. I was a heck of a skier. I was coach of racing teams. I helped coach a junior national ski team. I could go on, but I would give all that up. That wasn't my passion. But I wish I had the chance. If I had a chance to go through again, I think, you need to take care of your family. Yeah. But after that, if you have a passion, no matter what it is, it should hopefully become your priority, and you need to have the time to enjoy that. We're only asking for 4 or 5 weeks a year, and I'm really sorry that I didn't have that time. I think I was pretty good at what I did, but I think I could have been a lot better. I did pretty good for the amount of time I had to hunt, and I had jobs through my life where I only had weekends, and hopefully you had Thursday and Friday of Thanksgiving, and I'd be working somewhere and we'd get 3 or 4 inches of snow, and oh man, I just wanted to quit. And so there's more important things to think about down the road, but if you're young and you had some choices to make, you might want to give that some thought and don't get tied into something that governs your life. It's a wonder I even kept running equipment without killing somebody with an excavator or something, because your mind wasn't even there. And I wish I could have had the time to, and to go a few other places that some of you had a chance to do. And I got asked so many times by people, and I couldn't go. Kind of sorry for that, but lucky that I did do what I did when I could. So I thought we had a better deer herd in Vermont. I think all of upper New England. I don't think today I could do that. I don't think we have the deer herd and the big deer, not the numbers. I think you guys know that. And I think it's so popular in the last 20 years that we have a difficult time to find areas where we can hunt on our own. And we're all looking for that special area. And when you find one, that's a blessing, because it's getting hard to do with it's really nice to see so many out there trying to do it, but you got to do your homework. Mm-hmm. And you can't do it in November. I I believe you got to get out there in late September, October, and spend some time. We don't need snow to do that. They're doing things that we need to be looking for. I used to like driving down the road with my wife in Maine, logging roads in September, early October. We'd be going 1 mile an hour looking at the shoulders of the road where the dirt's soft. Man, you can learn a lot in 5 miles. You can, if you've done that 2 or 3 days, you're not seeing much. You shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. So you process of elimination, and you finally find something good, and you can. Too many people waste too much time in the bad area, because Uncle Fred hunted there for years, and he got some deer, and your cousin shot some, so they think they should be there, but they're not doing their homework. Yeah, I think you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it nowadays, because there's so much pressure, if you are a hunter that's looking for a certain age class or a certain, let's say it's antler inch or weight of deer, it takes a mature deer to reach either one of those things.
Yeah.
And to find an area that holds a mature deer,
I know
is getting tougher and tougher with the amount of available access into a lot of these areas.
Yeah.
You definitely got to do your homework.
Yeah, one thing I learned, and you guys hunt, that was a Maine buck that you just.
Yes.
Where you've been, and maybe even where you scouted out in October, geez, McCrow, you come back there with all big expectations, and this gate closed. They pulled a bridge or a culvert, and you're done. I mean, and so all that preparation can. So you got to do a lot of it. You need to have other places, lined up, and
the more ground you know,
yeah,
the more ground you cover, the more apt you are to find one.
I remember one year my wife and I went to up to Maine and went through Jackman, and I wanted to get over to an area, and I was looking at my Maine atlas and thinking, sometimes they have a little circle around where they have a bridge crossing in your topos and stuff, and that circle means the bridge is out. But I learned after a while it might not be out because the paper company decides to go back in there and log again. So it's worth taking those little roads and checking it out. So we went through the customs and working my way east. And I'd always wanted to check that out. Well, I got there, and it was getting late, and the bridge was out. So let's just put the tent up here. We just had a small tent at the time. And so we cooked us up a little fire, and we went in the tent there, and I'd say 10 o'clock or something, 9 o'clock, we heard some shots off somewhere. We heard more, 10, 11, we heard some more. We weren't sleeping. Some were far away and some weren't, and then we heard this vehicle pull down in this sort of a gravel pit by the bridge that wasn't a bridge, and there was some French fellows, you could tell, stopped over there, and they were talking pretty loud and stuff, and I could see them pretty good looking out the tent, and after a while they hollered at us, but I don't know what they said, but they said, boy, they don't want us here, and so anyway, they left, and we continued to hear a shot now and then, and in the distance, and then, a couple hours later, the same vehicle came back, and they blew their horn stuff. It was obvious they wanted us to leave, and it was a little bit scary. I figured some guys were drunk, and I was looking out through the tent at it pretty good, and I saw this little tower-like thing built in the back. Like, it's probably only up 7, 8 feet. And there's a guy sitting in it. And so I could see that, and finally they blew the horn and yelled at us again, and they drove off. So we never did sleep, and we continued to hear shots, and we got up before the sun was up. You're not going to cook our breakfast or anything, and we got in the vehicle and started down the road. We hadn't gone very far, and a Maine warden stopped us, and was the biggest man I ever saw in my life. He was 6'15", I think. That guy had a half cab, the cab and a half, small door. He had a seat. His seat was in that back section. I mean, that guy couldn't sit in it. He got out of there, and the guy was way over 7 feet. Not big smile, walks over, knelt right down on the ground. He's face to face, still was bending down, and introduced himself. And he said, "Would you be the people camping up by the bridge there?" I said, "Yeah, we were." He said, "What the hell are you doing in here?" I said, "I don't know. What did we do wrong?" He said, "You're on something Passamaquoddy Indian reservation." I said, "Oh." He said, Didn't you hear any shooting?" I said, "Yeah. What's that?" And he said, "It's their moose season. They can hunt all night." I said, "What? The thing with the tower in the back with a chair in it, they can do that?" He said, "Oh, they got spotlights. He said, they can do anything they want. We don't govern that. We're only here to make sure the safety thing, And I said, "Oh, my God." He said, "Well, I think you might have been a little bit lucky because they don't do a lot of moose hunting without a lot of booze." So, okay, well, we won't do it again. He said, "No, you won't." He said, "Listen, you follow me. I'll get you out of here." I said, Don't come back in here again." "How did you get in here?" So I told him I took this little road and stuff down. "Well, that's why you didn't see any signs." I said, "No, I didn't. I really didn't." And he said, "Well, then stick right with me." So we left, and that was one scouting expedition. Didn't pay off too well.
How can?
Didn't get much sleep either.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it.
No.
There's quite a few Indian zones there in northern Maine.
Yep.
Do any rules apply at all, or can they just hunt animals at their own?
They're considered like sovereign nations.
You know,
they can make their own government and rules and all of that.
So they can kill animals any time of the year
They
for the
can
most
do
part?
pretty much whatever they want.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's right because that's what the warden pretty much told us. He told us that, it isn't just moose season either. He said, "Just don't come back here again."
Huh.
So,
Did you ever make it into that area you were wanted to deer hunt?
yeah, I had a lot of good luck up at that country, and I wouldn't mind telling you it was, oh my God, I'll forget it. It got kind of popular with the Vermont crowd. They were up in there.
I know where you're talking. You don't have to say it.
Okay.
I know where you're talking.
Okay.
We all know. Yeah.
Okay. Was it
The four of us sitting here know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah.
It was good to us, and I happened to rent just stumbled on and rented the first little cabin the guy had. Wasn't even ready to. My brother Bobby shot a 265-pound buck that year.
Really?
Yeah, and I got one, and we did well there for about 7 or 8 years, and then more and more hunters came in quickly. And the next thing you know, it was Vermont plates all over the place there. And I'd say by the end, we were driving 30 to 40 miles away from there to get into good hunting again. And
I don't understand why it does it, but when word's out that a big one gets killed there, it just invites all these other people in for whatever reason. I don't understand it. Like the big one's been shot, but yet the following year, all of a sudden, there's a whole pile of people in there thinking that maybe lightning's going to strike twice.
Yeah.
Area I killed one in, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now in Vermont. Same thing. Like
Really?
There was 2 good bucks killed out of there, myself and Dustin. And after that, it has been an absolute zoo of vehicles.
It's word of mouth. It just gets around it wherever they check them in at the tagging stations and stuff,
Mm-hmm. And, like, I'm not blaming a guy. You shoot whatever you want. But when you start shooting the younger age class of animals, you're never going to get...
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have a kind of a cool story about that place. One of my friends had brought up some venison, and we didn't have a stove in there. at the main lodge. So he just it was a hot plate thing, you know, and cooked up some venison from a bow kill he got, and it was just cooking it. I came in, and one of the guys said to, I'm sure we can use a name here, you know, Kuhn, he's a very popular, well-known guy. He says, hey, Kuhn says, did you get some salt and pepper? He goes, oh, no, I forgot that. Dell will have it. He's got everything. So I'd like to be famous for that I have everything, you know. I mean, I got extra scopes and extra everything. And they are always using it, too. So I heard him say that. I was starting to take my boots off. Oh, shit. That year, my wife's kind of helping me pack things up, and I had a salt and pepper, those little cardboard ones you buy to go camping. They were so hard, you could have knocked somebody out with one. So I said, you better throw these away. I said, get me some more of those. She said, you never use these. I said, you never know. Well, I didn't have any. So Kuhn asked me for some. I said, yeah, I got some. He insisted, then I told you you'd have them. So I pulled my boots back on, and I went out the door, and I ran like hell. Back then, I could run like hell. Quite a long ways over to the lodge. I grabbed the salt and pepper shaker, and I ran all the way back. I stood outside, catch my breath, you know, so I'm not running in, walking in. I came in with the salt and pepper shaker. That's how I got it. I tell you, he's got everything. So he hands it. I'm proud as hell, you know. So next day we're going hunting and kind of spread out to leaving where we were. And my brother Bobby goes, "Hey," I said, "What?" He said, "You didn't have any salt and pepper." I said, "I did too." He said, "No, you didn't." He said, salt and pepper shakers is the same one that's on every one of them tables over in the lodge. He said, but I won't tell anybody. Yeah. There's a lot of fun that we could sit here and tell stories and stories, but not really one about killing a deer. And it's about all the fun you have associated.
Yeah.
Oh, geez, you never forget them. No.
These guys, Corey and Brent, met Kuhn today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We went over to the Morgan fish hatchery and grabbed some fish. Stocked a local beaver pond.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good entertainment too.
Yeah. You know,
a couple of the boys, we won't name too many names here, but they tested out how cold the water was today.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Did we? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Corey is a little bit lighter than me, I guess.
Okay. There was a little bit of ice some places.
Yeah.
Not so
Corey,
much.
Corey walked across it, not a problem. Brent, not so much.
Yeah. Ended up to my waist. but I felt pretty good after. About 2 minutes later, Corey stepped into it. So we filled our boots.
You know, when we were we had an idea about building that hatchery. It just came up with something, and knowing Kuhn the way I do is probably his idea. Cause he's always got ideas, and so anyway, it mushroomed, and the club decided we need to look into it. So, Dell, you got to go to Montpelier. Yeah, well, hey, how about you? No, you got to go. So I tried to leave a lot out. I got finally in contact with the fisheries department in St. Johnsbury, and they had a fish biologist, obviously, and then the head guy. And so I got an appointment to sit down with them and told them we wanted to rebuild that fish hatchery and, you know, what we wanted to do with it and have it so that we could stock, like you folks did apparently today, with kids, you know, and the 4-H clubs and Boy Scouts and stuff, as much as we could get kids into it, you know, in backcountry ponds, beaver ponds. And so they were listening. And then this one guy said, you know, Del, that's a great idea, one of the better ones we've heard, but we have these clubs that get together, organizations that want to do something, and it's great, and it falls apart in about an average of 4 to 6 years. And, you know, there's too much work, and people don't keep coming, and not just for the fish, but I mean raising the fish and everything. And so that's what we worry about, and you're trying to do something with the state here, so if we're going to provide the fry, we don't want it to fail, But we had been doing a lot of other things for the state, and we had a good track record. So he said, I'll hook you up with so-and-so. So he did, and anyway, I sold them the idea, and they said to go ahead with it. So in talking with them, this one was in Waterbury, this meeting. When we got done, the guy kind of cornered me and said, hey, I heard something about you hunting last year. I said, what's that? Well, while I was deer hunting, we were walking up on this mountain, and my son and a friend of mine, and we were looking for a track. We had some good snow, and we hit a track, and it was a good deer. And so I gave the guys about 3/4 of an hour to go up on the mountain where the deer moved through, and I took off after it. And I hadn't gone far at all. In fact, it's a wonder the deer didn't hear us talking. It was 90 yards, and there was a lot of fresh snow in the trees, and the boughs were weighted down, And he went under this tree, and I bent down to go under it, and I look up, and he's laying up there and not looking at me. So I dropped down on my knees, and I had a pump, Remington pump at the time, and peep sights on it, and I pulled up, took careful aim at his lower neck there, and pulled the trigger. Nothing, no click or nothing. So, what's with that, And so to shorten the story, it wouldn't fire, and so I can't believe it. And so finally, I know I got to jack a shell in, get rid of one and get another one in. There's something wrong. So I do that. And when I did that, the deer stood up, but he's looking the wrong. He's not even looking at me. So I carefully pull up again, and it doesn't fire. Oh my God! So I lower the gun, and I got to try that again. There's nothing else I can see to do. So I do it again. He snaps his head around and looks the other way. He still doesn't know I'm under that tree. So anyway, the gun never fired, and there was nothing I could do. And the deer's sick of looking at me, and he finally turns and takes off. And so we did not get the deer. So sort of the end of the story, I went back to camp, and I grabbed my other rifle, and I went hunting the rest of the day. Well, when my son and my friend came back to camp that night, when we got back together, Shane said, what was wrong with that other gun? Oh, by the way, guys, I found out what was wrong with it after, 2 days later. The screw on the end of the pump action, it was loose. That's all that was wrong with it. But I didn't know that. But I'd gone home and I did. I went home and got another gun. And anyway, I'm with this fisheries biologist in Waterbury, and he said, tell me that story about you, the one I just told you folks. And I said, oh, yeah. Well, when Shane and Dick got back that night, Dick said, what did you do with your gun? And I said, that ticked me off so much. On my way home, I threw it in the damn river right by Buck Flat there. He said, you did not. I said, I threw it right in the river. I don't want to ever see that gun again. Really? Yeah. Okay, so the fisheries biologist was working on Champlain. My friend Dick was the skipper of the research vessel called the Melozyra on Lake Champlain. So that they bump into each other. And so, they're talking about hunting and stuff. Hey, Del Green, oh, yeah. What did you get a deer this year? Yeah, but, boy, let me tell you the one he didn't get. And so he tells them that story. And he threw the gun in the river. And he said, yeah, I guess he did. He said, you don't know what side of the river he threw it on. Dick's like, what? Why? He says, well, my son and I, we like to scuba dive. So, he said, I don't know, but you can't throw a gun very far. So he said, I'm going to find that gun. So I never see the guy. I don't know who he is till I go to these meetings. Then I end up in Waterbury with him. And so at the end of that meeting, we go to us and say, hey, Del, hang on, I want to talk to you. So he brings that up. And I said, which side of the river you throw that gun on? I said, why? He said, well, we scuba dived up and down all over there, and we never found a thing. I said, oh my God. I said, I never threw that in the river. He said, no, I told my son we hunted for pretty near a whole day there. We was frozen, wet, cold, and get in the truck and warm up again. He said, we never did find that gun. Now I know you never threw it in there. I said, yeah, once again, sometimes it's not all about the deer you put on the ground. It's
No, it's definitely not. It's the stories of everything else sometimes that makes it that much more special. So, I've got some questions here for you. I threw this on one of our media pages that you were coming on, and just had some people throw out there that ask you any kind of questions. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions, and you think on it, ponder it, answer it how you wish.
Did you do this already with the boys?
No. When we were out to lunch, I just was like, we should do something. Or one of the guys mentioned it, and because we get a lot of questions about certain things, especially the more influential hunters. This one's a good one. It goes just with that. Tyler writes in, how many friends became acquaintances from hunting and having the passion drive more than majority? How many people, I would say to sum that up, how many of your good friends have come from hunting? Maybe that you've met along the way?
A lot. Yeah. Dominated my life. Look where I'm sitting. Is this a good example?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect example.
It sure is.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It sure is.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it really is.
What's that?
That's a good answer.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's one. We touched on this, but one thing you'd tell your 30-year-old self about deer hunting, and that's essentially to take care of your family and make the time for your passion that you have.
Yeah.
There's a fine line there, right? And maybe this is a topic that we can touch on because it's definitely something that, I shake my head at times, but success starts at home, right? Success starts with family.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily how much money you make or anything else, but it starts at home. It starts with, you supporting your wife, your kids, and, what you need to do to better yourself, your situation, their situation, whatever it may be. And then it's hunting. Then it's the hobby.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that I see now more than ever through the social media world that are, look at me, I want to be somebody. But yet they struggle in the other parts of life, the parts that matter the most.
Yeah.
How do those people turn that around, or do they ever? It seems like an image that somebody wants, that it's not something that you can just take a photo of and throw it on media and try and be somebody. It's something that's earned, like a respect thing.
Let me just ask you something, because I know your family. Do you have some children? You don't. Neither one of you. No. Well, I'll rent you a couple. You know what we can do that's a bad mistake is push our children too hard, too young, and I knew better than that, but I think I did push them a little too hard. That was the important thing. You're in hunting camp with us, and you got to get up at 4:30, and I kind of wonder if maybe I shouldn't have done for example, I bow hunted a little, but again, didn't have much time. But what a good way to start young people, boys or girls, doesn't make any difference. Start them doing that, practicing when you're not freezing, shivering. You don't have to sit somewhere where you're freezing and sitting just, an hour or two before dark and stuff like that. And I think that I wish I'd have done more of that with them. And again, didn't really probably have the time, but I can look back and, I've lost a son, but I have one now that I love dearly, but he has no passion for what I have. My life's the outdoors. I work in it and I play in it. He doesn't see that as enjoyment. So what's that do? It divides you. We don't do much together. We love each other and we go see each other, birthdays and Christmas and call each other once in a while. We don't share the same passions at all, and I think it might have been my fault.
Does he understand your passion? Does he understand it?
Yeah. I just think I took him. Shane was a good one to joke about it. Yeah, we were there with that. Yeah, we had our 2 pair of jeans on that day and Grandma's coat, and I couldn't even put my hands through the end of the sleeves to hold a gun. And you did with what you had. It came with it. He jokes about it,
Yeah.
But he stuck with it, and Sean didn't. And but I understand that we're all different. And I probably pushed him a little too hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. One time we were hunting and we put on a hunt because we didn't have any snow. So there were guys in back of this pond that were good friends of mine, and sometimes they would hunt up towards us long, long ways. So it wasn't like a drive in a way. And if they got something going, it might come up through to us, and we'd reverse it. So I put up a tree stand, and my tree stands years ago weren't anything to be very proud of. So you had to be I don't know what, to get up in them, and then you better hang on, So I had Sean go up in this tree stand, and my son, and so we got together and we're talking about what we're going to do next. We didn't have any snow, but this wouldn't be going on. And so we got another plan. So, okay, let's go. So we head off. We start to head off in different directions. And Dick says, "What about Sean?" I said, "Oh, cripes! Where is he? He's still in the tree stand." Because he came up by him, and I said, "Did you tell him we're going to meet? We were meeting here at the X at Crossroads." He goes, "Yeah." He said to tell you that he wondered if you forgot that he's scared of height. I said, "Oh my God, he doesn't dare to come down." And I forgot all about that, and he's up there, and I walk over to him, and he's shivering all that time, and I forgot all about that. And to show you how what an idiot I am, a few years later, I couldn't think what to get them for Christmas. So I'm working down near Stowe. You wouldn't know where that is, but
Not at all.
so north of that a ways is an airport, an airstrip, and they have what are the planes?
Yeah, gliders.
Gliders, and so they were having, for $60, have a glider ride. I said, man, they'd love that. I mean, they race motocross bikes; they're in the air half the time. They ought to love that. So I buy them. Each, in fact, I can remember they're probably $200 today, but it was $60 a piece. And Shane, he jumped all over that. Sean weren't even looking at that thing. I forgot about it again.
He sold the certificate, did he?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
Anyway, I think we have to be careful with the kids when they're young, and it's too bad that sometimes like myself, with hindsight, it's not really too good. So if I was giving some advice, to forego a day or two and make sure they have fun every bit of that day, and don't make it your priority.
Yeah. Here's one. What's the most important thing you learned that you had to change to become more successful? So let's throw that into tracking. What's one piece of advice that maybe it took you a little bit of time to learn that you needed to do in order to be more successful?
Yeah, I hate to repeat myself, but it's so important to me. But I know, Joy, we talked prior to this one. The best thing that ever happened to me was when I was trying to track some deer at a young age, and I was always bumping the deer out, and I wasn't getting them. And then I'd chase them and chase them and chase them, and I wasn't getting them. And I was about 21 or 22. And one day, I bumped this buck out. I was following it, and I came to this opening in the woods, lesser trees. And then, they're up above you and they're looking at you, and then they see you and they leave. And so you finally see the track and you walk up and they've been watching you. And I sat down on a log. And to this day, I could probably walk right back there again. And what am I doing wrong? Why has this happened to me for 3 or 4 years? And I was getting some deer because there were a lot of deer, and I'd run into one. But I didn't know what I was doing. I just liked tracking because none of us sitting here really like to sit a lot, So I said, what am I doing wrong? I kept looking around. I said, why did that deer see me? Oh, you idiot. He saw you because you came out of this fairly thick woods into this mixed woods where you can see 75, 80 yards. And he'd made his hook, and he's up there watching for you. How many times has this got to happen before you learn? You have to read the woods. And that's my biggest advice. You have to look in front of you and read. If we're tracking deer, you have to read the woods, because hardly any deer will go downhill and lay down and look uphill. And it just doesn't happen, almost never. And so you have to notice this in front of you 30, 40, 50 yards before you've been doing that. And sometimes it's even wise, if you think you've gone a touch further than maybe you should have, walk downhill slow and make a big loop around yourself and hook around and come up above him. And keep in mind that this deer is only 75 yards away or something. You can't see 150 yards in the woods where he is. So don't make your loop too short. Come around real slow. Maybe he didn't even stop here, but you can't walk out there and find out that he did. And once I figured that out, that was changed my game. After that, I hunted that way after that, and
It takes a lot of confidence to be able to do that.
yeah,
Right? It does take time.
yeah,
You've got to be able to sacrifice a little bit of time when you're behind that buck's track, because if you just peel off and take a 15-minute swing,
yeah,
well, now you're 15 minutes behind him.
exactly.
But the more that you do it, the more you'll understand, and the more that you read the track,
Yeah,
you definitely will gain that knowledge and that confidence to know that,
Yeah.
okay, he could be on that bench right above me. Now's my time to swing.
Proof of that. Here's a little. Once I was on with my 2 sons and one of their friends, and I remember just back a little bit, we're talking about spending some time with the kids. Don't always do so. We had some new snow. I kind of wanted to take off with just my son Shane, and take off, and it wouldn't be fair to my other son and the friends. So I said, okay, this is what we're going to do today. We're going to find a track somewhere, and Shane and I are going to take it and double team it, and you guys are going to get in front of us. And if we push it through and we don't see it, we're going to switch. So we did that, and we worked our way all up this mountain. We haven't seen this deer, but it was a good deer. And we kept doing it, and he was slipping through us, but he was getting up into an area where we knew the woods really well. And I said, Shane knew the country, and I said, take your brother and the other guy and go up around. You know where to go. Set him in some good places, because I think we got him in here. And so I said, I'll give you 45 minutes. If you cut the track, I said, fire one shot so I'm not wasting my day. And then you take the track and go do your thing, and I'll go somewhere else. So, okay, so I wait, and I wait, and I wait. Well, I went a little ways, but then they made their big hook, and I I don't hear a shot, so I'm happy because I think we got this deer between us. So I went in and started up through, and I was like excited because I know where those deer move. Shane knew where, and I think we got him cornered. And so I go on the track a little ways, and it's up on the side of the mountain, and I came almost, I almost went out into this opening where they had logged it off before, and I was like, you idiot. And I just kept moving slow, and I went downhill, and I made that loop I just described, and I came around and I came up above. I said, I know he's up there because he didn't. By the way, I'm getting closer to where the boys are, I think. And I pussyfooted up around there, and I come up behind him, and he came out of his bed and started running, and I shot the deer, and I have a bad habit of just throwing lead. If it's running, I'm shooting. So I had my little 44 Magnum back there. I used to hunt with that for years. I shot a lot of deer with it, but I finally came to realize it's not enough gun. You take a deer like you just shot, you better put it in a vital place because there's no big expansion wound, And so anyway, I was still shooting at it, 4 times. And obviously the boys didn't get it, but they came back happier than heck, and I was obviously happy too, but I would have been so happy if they'd run out in front of them, And so that was just an example of what I talked about a couple of minutes ago of if I'd have walked out there or kept going, he was going to bound away, and we wouldn't have got that deer, but I made my loop, and I made it just right, and I came in behind him, and he stood up looking down that way. He never knew I was there, I don't think. But just an example.
You jumped above him.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, we have to admit, you guys are a bunch of good hunters here. Don't hurt to know the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The more that you know, the more ground that you cover, the more advantage you have in the situation.
Well, definitely, yeah.
Whatever it is. And I think that any game that anybody hunts, whether it's a turkey, whether it's an elk, whether it's a moose, there's something in the pursuit of every one of those animals that can teach you something tracking deer.
Yeah.
Right? Whether it's calling turkeys, calling a bull moose in. Each one of them, there's characteristics in hunting each one of those animals or a turkey that you can use to put towards deer hunting, whether it's sitting or tracking or still hunting or whatever it is. The better you are at moose hunting, it's going to make you a better deer hunter. The better you are at turkey hunting, and that goes back to covering ground, right? The more ground you know, and maybe you understand that when you're calling a turkey and you don't want to be below him. He's just going to be up above you, and he's going to look down on you and say, you come to me, I'm not coming to you, right?
Yeah.
When you're below a buck and you're looking up at him, he's looking down at you, you're never going to see him go. When you're above him, you stand your chance.
I got a question I can ask the boys.
Shoot.
How big an emphasis do you put on the wind as you hunt? I'll answer that question first, then you can run with it. I finally, after a few years, I don't believe in it a lot. If you go in the woods not smelling like an onion, I just have shot deer so close to me, pull them up out of beds through the years, from here to that road. Closer than that, I just never. Some of my own family they thought I was too much of a fanatic, but I'd rather put my coat on half wet in the morning than I would put it by that wood stove, and all those things. This is going too far, but I wouldn't eat spaghetti at camp. I wasn't eating anything like that. I'm not going to eat any garlic bread. My father would go, Jesus, what am I going to do with you? But they weren't hanging up any deer either. So all those little things. And so I really came to believe that the wind's blowing like this a little, and then it goes over here. And you can't expect to jump onto a deer 30 yards away probably all the time, but I never let it make my decision to change what I was doing, and I never thought it hurt me any. So I don't. What do you guys think about that? And you wouldn't even hurt my feelings by saying you don't agree with me.
Corey.
I'm not sure if I agree or disagree because I'm not sure what your opinion on it was, but I know for me, like I take no thought into scent control whatsoever.
You don't.
I'll eat whatever, I'll wear whatever. My coat will smell like my dog. I'll smell like coffee and whatever. And the biggest thing for me is just trying to play the wind if I can. If I could stay downwind, that's the most important. Because no matter what, I'm not going to be able to. I'm still going to sweat and I'm going to smell like a man.
Oh yeah.
No matter what I do, I could take wash my clothes in the fancy laundry detergent and take a special bath in the scent-free stuff and spray myself down, like you say. All them do on mainstream hunting shows, right?
Yep.
Promote all these fancy scent control products, ozonics, the electronic environment thing. I'm still going to smell like a man, because I'm a tracker. I'm sweating. So if I could
opened this can of worms, Dale.
no, if I could stay downwind, that's the most important thing. But tracking, I'm going to stay with the track and try to stay downwind of where I think the buck might be.
Yeah.
But I don't think. To me, scent control, I could do, chew the scent control gum and all that stuff. Brush my teeth with a fancy toothpaste, do all of those things, and I'm still going to smell like a man because I'm sweating and whatever. And so I don't really worry about it.
I guess I kind of totally agree with him because I have friends that kind of drive me nuts with all the electronic stuff, and
it's a lot of it's gimmicky anyway.
Yeah, and the boxes with the bows that they're in their trunks and stuff. But a lot of people do it, and they have success. So to each their own.
So it's like the kind of thing like someone has success, and they're trying to prove what they want to be true. So they're going to attribute that success to whatever it is they want.
Yeah.
So it could be anything. I was successful that day because of the stars aligned or whatever. Like they're going to attribute that to whatever. They'll say, it's this product that whatever.
Just superstitious.
Superstition is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
But
favorite shirt, favorite coat, favorite gun,
I guess
favorite underwear.
Dell, like in summary, because I'm a tracker and I'm on the move all the time. Like I said, I don't take much thought into it. If I was going to hunt from a stationary position, sit or whatever, I would put more emphasis on that.
Yeah, I agree
scent
with
control.
You. Yeah.
That's just me. I'm not saying I'm right or wrong.
Casey. Just get close to Brent or Corey. Hold that thing up.
Everything that Corey just said.
Yeah?
I'm right there.
You're right there. Put that thing on.
I guess that's cheating, but it's true. I don't pay a lot of attention to it. Maybe that's horrible.
Yeah.
Because it's going every way.
Every which way. You just never know. In the big woods, it's blowing 10 different directions at any given time.
Just following him where he goes.
Originates from my body and goes in every direction.
Hang on. Put those back on. Say that one more time.
No, it's funny, but sometimes, the wind's swirling so much, it seems that like I am generating the wind, like it's originating from me and going in every direction, and I can't be downwind no matter what I do.
Let me ask you something else. Could that possibly have something to do with the amount of gunfire that you release while you're tracking?
I mean, possible.
That could dictate which way the wind blows.
Yes.
I guess I'm missing something here. Huh?
Brent, what about you?
I guess I'm sort of more like Dell. I try to keep my clothes away from anything and as clean. And it's funny, I try to eat foods that don't have garlic smell. I mean, if June made something, I really am not going to eat garlic bread. I just, and I agree with Corey too. The wind, or all of you guys, the wind is blowing all different directions. But I try to work with the wind. And I just think that this extra smell of your dog on your clothes that you've brought out is possibly a chance for that deer to smell something that he hasn't smelled, I guess. And maybe I don't know. I don't know what's right, what's wrong. I mean, there's 5 people in this room, and so far there's been basically 4 different answers. I think. What's your thought, Joey?
I think that each one of you you're not right or wrong, right? Like, I think that there's a million different ways to look at it. I think that it's very situational. You know, I could use this same principle out west, right? When we're in the Midwest, it is all about the wind. If you don't have the wind in your face, if you smell like a bag of shit, you're not going to see deer. Those deer know that death comes from above. They play the wind, right? When you come back east, and we're talking about big woods hunting and tracking and everything else, I make sure that my wool is left outside, right? I leave it on the porch. I don't go pump gas with it. I don't put it by a fire, right? What alerts an animal more than anything? The smell of smoke, right?
Yeah, I think
Animals
so.
are very,
Yeah.
but in the same sense, back to Casey's, you know, the wind's going to blow 10 different directions in the big woods.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. I guess the steps that we take, like, you know, I don't eat garlic. I won't eat onions. And quite frankly, I love my wife, but I try and stay away from the, you know, the smell of perfume and
Easy.
no offense, honey. The only thing that you can do is take precautions to maybe put yourself in a situation where you're going to get yourself that much closer. And I think in the big woods with the wind blowing 10 different directions, the only thing that you can do is hope that that buck makes a mistake, and your preparation that you've done before that is going to pay off to allow you that split second opportunity to put that bullet behind his shoulder.
So, you know, you can walk. I always try to play the wind, but you can walk with the wind as long as you move at the speed of smell.
You can, and I think it's very situational as well. Within the Northeast, I don't want to say deer are dumber in certain states than others, but I can tell you for a fact that deer in the Green Mountains don't get tracked like deer in the North. You can take any one of these 200+ pound bucks that are 5.5 to 9.5 years old, and those deer get tracked multiple times a season. Those deer know death comes from behind them. You can go down to the Green Mountains, right, like where most all of us have hunted them. Those deer don't get tracked like that. They're not used to being tracked down. You know, they're used to other predators, but they're not used to human encounter like we have it here.
Yeah.
And you see it, I guess I see it the most in Massachusetts. When we go down there, to me, those deer are absolutely clueless. They remind me of deer out west. When you kick them up out of bed, they'll run a little ways, they'll turn around, they'll stop, and they'll look back at you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you know, like Ontario was that way. You know, you jump a buck, or not. You could call him back in a way. You know, he was fearless of man because he didn't have that encounter of, you know, fear.
Yeah.
You know, nobody ever put the fear of God into him. And I think that there's certain areas within New England that are that same way. That's just my personal take on it.
What could a question for me for you guys is calling deer. Maybe if you know one's in the area, you know, or if you've jumped one, I don't think it does much good to start calling right then. But if you think he could be somewhere near you, and you have a good feel of that, and if you problem with some of us, we're trackers, so we don't have a ton of patience. But I've tried calling back when it got more popular. You know, everybody was walking around with everything to call deer with. I never had a lot of luck, but then again, I've never had time to bow hunt like I should have. So, what's your answer to that, Corey? You know, do you call some?
A lot.
You do.
I love it.
Yeah.
I do a lot of grunting.
Okay.
I'll doe bleat, and I do a lot of snorting. So imitating when a deer blows at you.
Yes.
So, this is all my opinions through experience that I've learned, but I've been doing it a lot since 2015 is when I really started experimenting with it.
Yeah.
And deer are very vocal, and it's, but they don't like bugle like an elk,
Yeah.
and they don't, grunt like a bull moose. Their hearing is very acute, so they don't have to be super loud. So it's kind of subtle to the human ear. So we don't, unless we observe those interactions a lot, we don't hear it that often. But they are very vocal, and their loudest form of communication with each other is snorting.
Yep.
And it doesn't always necessarily mean, like, it can be a challenge to other deer,
Yeah.
or it can be an alert that there is a threat. But to give you an example, a story from this past season, rainy day, no snow. I went to check on some sign, a scrape line in an area. I knew there was a good buck hanging out, and I kind of still hunted my way in there. Without being snow, it was actually really good hunting conditions because the rain, I could move around without making noise, no wind to worry about. And I was kind of getting cold after I'd been there for a while, so I was making my way in a different direction, and there was a spruce knoll, and as I was kind of going along, I heard the deer get up, probably 50 yards from me. I heard a deer get up, and I just out of the corner of my eye saw him as he was full tilt, bounding away, and I saw beams and big deer. So there was no doubt it was a big buck, and so I snorted at him, loud as I could. And the second time I did it, he hit the brakes and stopped. And I took a step forward, and he was about 100 yards out, broadside, looking back at me. And I ended up looking at him for about 10 minutes. So he was looking at me, and I was looking at him, and he didn't know what I was, but he had stopped. And he actually took a couple steps towards me. And I should have just shot him, but there was a branch in front of his face, so I could only see like a tine and a beam.
Oh.
And I just wasn't sure. I was really going for... And so he ended up walking away, and then I moved forward and I jumped him again, I should have shot him. But yeah, he snorting, he pumped the brakes and stopped because he didn't know what it was. He just heard me coming.
Yeah.
And so he took off because he heard a threat. But when I snorted, it's another buck or whatever, and he stopped.
It'd be nice if some people really pay attention to that.
It's not going to work every time.
Can I tell you what the 40-year-old Del Green would have done? He'd have shot the tree next to him to get the buck to take a step, and then he would have killed the buck.
would have shot the limb off.
Then shot the deer.
Then shot the deer.
Casey, what about you? Do you call at all?
I've used a doe bleat at times.
Yep.
But it's, I guess, just after I jump. If I jump deer and don't see them, sometimes I just...
Yeah.
doe
See if they're
bleat.
right there.
And but several times they've come back.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to be patient and wait that out.
Yeah.
Because I've found out that start moving too soon and realize that they were coming right back to me.
Yeah.
But
That's a big word, patience,
It is very tough for a tracker to do.
Yeah.
Very tough. Most of us have way too much ADHD to sit still very long.
Yeah.
So, the thing about it is it's not going to work every time, but if you jump a deer like that, what do you have to lose?
Good point.
Yeah. And
So let me ask you, Corey, of all the things, what is the most number one effective call in your opinion that you've had success with it? Is it a grunt? Is it a bleat? Is it a wheeze? Is it a blowing at them? What is it?
Well, they've all worked on various occasions. Probably a default I have is if I jump a deer, I'm going to blow at it. you know.
But is it really a default? It's not, because you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
The deer's either gonna run away from you, and you're not gonna have an opportunity, or he's gonna run. And whether, when I was a kid, I would whistle, right? That's my old man. My old man can whistle on command, and he would whistle at that deer, and 9 times out of 10, that deer would stop.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not much different if you throw out a call to it. If that deer can hear it, it might stall him, stop him, stall him, boom.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I do on those conditions when it's difficult when you're noisy, it's crunchy, it's dry, whatever the conditions, you're going to make noise, is trying to walk where I'm minimizing the noise, and the noise I'm making is going to sound like a deer as much as I can, and then trying to cover some of that noise I'm making with, I'll throw out a grunt every once in a while, just so that, hey, yeah, a deer might hear me coming. If I grunt or I bleat, it might just think I'm another deer. So if it would just hesitate, like sometimes it just comes down to fractions of time. Just that deer hesitating before it bounds out of its bed, that might make the difference.
How many of you halfway through my hunting, I ran into a guide in Maine. I literally bumped into him, and I never met him before. And I was truthfully, I'd been chasing something. I was pretty exhausted. I went back down to my truck, and I was kind of debating what I was going to do, and I tipped the seat back there, and I dozed off, and it was maybe 1 o'clock or something. It doesn't matter. There's a little tap on my window, and I roll the window down, and it was an older man, big man, and asked me if I was going up in the woods there, and I said, no, actually, I'm not. He said, well, I didn't want to go if you were going up in there, and I said, no. I really didn't know what I was going to do. I'd come down off over here. And so he said, well, then you don't mind if I go up there? And I said, no, God, no. He said, well, I got a tree stand up in there, but I don't want to go if you're going up in there. And I said, no, I'm not going to. So, where are you from? I see the Vermont plates, and we talk a little bit, because it didn't take too long before I'm talking, probably too much. And we're really talking. I come to find out he's a Maine guide, and he had stopped his guiding hunters. He was getting along in years. He said, I still do a lot of guiding fishing on the lakes in Maine. And actually, before we left, he gave me a card and said, call me, come up fishing with me sometime. And I never did. I wish I had. But anyway, we said goodbye. I reached out and shook his hand, we said goodbye. And he went, from me to you, and he turned around and looked at me and walks back. He said, you use a can call? I said, I do, quite a bit. And he said, what would you say is quite a bit? And I said, whenever I think it might work. And he said, do it more than when you think it'll work. I said, really? He said, I don't take a man in the woods without a can call. I said, okay, cool. I thought I took advice from somebody that spent a lot of time in the woods and stuff. And after that, I think I spend $150 a year giving friggin' can calls to somebody I like that doesn't have one. They get wet and they don't last too long. And so I don't know if I should say this or not. My favorite one, and I can't use it anymore, is an electronic one, a little button. It had batteries in it, but that's considered an electric call. I shot a few deer because of that call, and I don't dare use it anymore. I don't feel it's an electronic call, but it is, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't go in the woods without a call.
Do you know the trick with those tipper cans that you can
Roll cans.
blow into the bottom of it, and it's kind of louder?
Yes.
Easier to control a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
You got to tilt it up a little bit,
Yeah.
though. Yeah. Brent, what about you? Do you ever call?
Yeah, I mean, it's been fortunate enough to see out in the Midwest with the amount of deer, and get to experience the grunting and the bleating and the snort wheeze and watch it from above and then bring it back home. I killed my deer in Vermont this year with a bleat can. I don't know that I would have without it this year. But I've also brought back a lot of deer with a grunt call. But I don't know if there's a certain time to use it. I think there's good time for a bleat can, and then later in the season, I don't seem to get any response out of it. A grunt seems to work maybe a little bit better. That's really all I've had for experience with it. But I don't go without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, those doe will grunt too, right? But most of the time when they're bleating, it's an in heat bleat, right?
Yeah.
That doe will grunt. You hear fawns grunt all the time, communicate with one another, and bucks are the same way. This is just a different type of grunt, right? It's like that roar. If you've ever
the
heard
roar.
a buck roar, it'll make
I've
the hair
heard
on the
it
back.
a couple times. It
Yeah.
sounds like a lion.
It'll make the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brent, did you feel that your bleat call helped you with that, getting that deer?
This year, 100%.
Because that was a heck of a nice deer,
Yeah.
and that was late in the season, was it not?
A day before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I was covered in rain and
Oh yeah.
and I had rolled the bleat can and I had moved, and when I moved, the deer, I happened to see the deer standing, looking back at where I had rolled the bleat can, and he never knew that I was there. I was just out of his sight, and he was looking right directly at and he was trying to find that deer.
Huh.
And it gave me, because it was raining, my glasses were covered, I couldn't see. It gave me a couple seconds to clean things up, and then one shot, and that was the end of it.
Remind me if you ever asked me to go hunting with you, not to go, because first of all, I take 3 steps to his 1, and if he decides he wants to go to Monadnock, he's probably going to be there in 3 hours. I could take a truck, He goes around, I better not say it, but certain lakes and ponds, and wanders into Canada. He comes back out, and he ends up in New Hampshire and shoots a deer in Maine.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. I found I can't follow Corey anymore. His 130 pounds to my 200 is a big difference.
Yeah, I think it's very situational. I think anything will work in the right time frame.
Let me just, excuse me for interrupting you. The grunt call, I never had luck with that, but I get a gut feeling you have.
Oh yeah.
You have. Yeah. I never shot one.
And, it's the kind of thing where you're never going to develop any sort of confidence in it unless it works for you. And it's never going to work for you unless you try it.
Yeah. I probably gave up a little too quick on it because I've run into other people like yourself that have done well with them. And I never see them without one, which ought to tell you something. They're not carrying it because it's a necklace,
Some people are very good just making those sounds with their own vocals. I don't have that ability. I'm sure I could learn it, but some people just have the right vocal cords. They could grunt and sound like a deer by mouth.
Interesting. Yeah.
It's kind of strange to think about how man can imitate, communicate with different animals. Owl hoot. You were gobbling like a turkey earlier today, and all these different things. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah.
I would say the number one thing for me that's killed them the most is wheezing at them. Just quick wheeze. I mean, I've killed them rattling, I've killed them grunting, I've killed them bleating.
Can you? What's an example of a wheeze?
Oh, spot on, huh? You want me to just do it right now?
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure what you. Yeah.
Yeah, but same thing. Like
That's pretty good. That's convincing.
You'll when you jump a deer, you'll blow at it, right?
Yeah.
I might blat at it, meh, meh, or I might throw out that snort wheeze. Most of the bucks that we're tracking are mature deer, right? And when you throw out a call at it, more than likely it's the dominant buck in the area, and he's going to turn. He's going to turn around and look. And if for me, whether it's for you, for it's grunting, which may be come back here, I'm going to kick your ass in a way, or wheeze, same thing. That dominant deer, it may give him enough time to come back curious enough to make him come back. Grunting, I haven't had nearly as much success with, but I don't carry a grunt call too much. I have the last year and a half or so, but for the most part, like when I'm tracking a buck, I don't want him to know I'm anywhere close or there's anything else close to him. Yeah. Like I want it to be surprise. I don't want his ear to flicker one way or another, that he hears a sound. You've seen that deer 100 times in the field or whatever, they hear something and they'll spin their ear right around and they'll wait and they'll wait and they'll wait and they'll wait. Like I don't want that. I want to be able to get as close to him as I possibly can, stand him up and kill him without him knowing that I'm there. But if I jump him, then maybe that call gives that opportunity. Yeah. Bring him back to me to where I can see him and shoot him.
This is pretty interesting because you're getting two variables here, working for both of you. Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong way of doing it.
That's well said. You're right.
It's like going back to the hunting a different game, like a moose, right? You're calling a bull moose in more often than not raking a tree, right?
Yep.
Imitating the sound. When you're calling a turkey and that gobbler's hung up a little bit, you scratch the leaves with your hand a little bit, right? First light, you pat the ground like the wings just hit the ground, and that hen, she starts squawking away. Little things like that make all the difference in the world.
I always thought, wouldn't it be nice if these bucks bugled like an elk? You'd be able to pinpoint right where they are.
What's tougher to hunt, Corey? A mature bull elk or a mature buck in the north?
It's different. They're equally as challenging.
They all have their own special place.
Yes. I've spent 3 falls out west hunting elk with a bow, and it's a tremendous experience.
Anyone that ever goes and hunts elk absolutely falls in love with it.
So to put it in perspective for you, you know how much I love tracking bucks on snow, right? Elk hunting the rut with a bow in the back country was on par with tracking a buck in snow in New England.
Okay,
Yeah.
60-inch bull moose at 10 yards or a giant bull elk at 10 yards. That elk is screaming in your ear. Mm-hmm. That bull wants to kick your ass.
There's something about, they're both incredible animals. A moose is larger, so they're equally as impressive. An elk is almost more majestic in a way. The sound of the bugle and probably a lot of it's the scenery, the environment. You find bull moose in some beautiful places, but the Rocky Mountains, it's when you're, sun's rising and you hear elk screaming and you're way back into the back country. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. For me, it's moose. When they give you the blank, the eye is off to one side and they tilt
crazy
his head
eyes.
back, forth. It's like, all right, here we go. But same thing, turkey, 5 yards away. You feel like you can feel it in your chest when he's gobbling.
Just to interact with those animals and be in their presence.
100%.
It's humbling,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Del, here's another one. What are you guys laughing at?
Corey just had my June a new sofa. He just spilled his coffee all over it.
Oh boy, you will be in the doghouse. Del, how did your hunting style adjust as you aged? The preparation, locations, etc.
Well, I worshipped my uncle, Gordon, and my dad had 4 boys, and my Uncle Gordon had 3 girls. So when we went to camp, the girls weren't there, but my dad couldn't handle 4 boys, and so my Uncle Gordon took me with him all the time. and I came to worship him as all kinds of everything. He was a second dad to me. My father was a super great father, but hunting season, I can't honestly remember. I mean, we went out at camp together, but I went with my Uncle Gordon. And so whatever I learned as a young person for quite a few years was with him. And I actually tell you, it was down in the Bridgewater area, up in the mountains of Chattagee and stuff, beautiful country. And so what I learned was whatever he taught me. So we still hunted all the time, and then sometimes we'd sit somewhere and he'd make little loops for me and stuff. And I thought that was what we always were going to do. As I got about 16 or 17, it wasn't enough. I didn't want to sit there and wait, and I didn't want to. And so finally I started doing. Fortunately, my brothers came along, so my Uncle Gordon could take them, and I didn't want to I wanted to go off on my own at about 16 or 17. And so I would no longer was a sitter. I just thrashed through around the woods. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have a guide that really taught me anything, you know. But I wasn't shooting any deer either. And there were deer there. They were hanging up $4, $5, $6 a year, you know, at that camp, and Del Green wasn't. So about 19 or something, my uncle said, well, my brothers weren't down there. I don't know why. You want to go with me? I said, and I don't want to hurt his feelings, you know. I said, yeah, I'll go with you. And he goes, no, I don't think you really want to. I said, yeah, I do. He says, no. He said, let me just give you one piece of advice. I said, yeah. He said, whatever you're doing it too fast. I said, okay. He said, well, will you try to remember that from your uncle? I said, yeah, I will. Every time you start doing something today, slow down. He knew I want to go up there, and I wanted to go over there. I don't think I was hunting very well. He knew I wasn't. I couldn't be doing all that and hunt. And I thought, as I left that day, maybe I ought to listen to him. You know, and so at the end of the day, I shot my first buck.
Nice.
I was 18. I never got one before. And one of my brothers had shot 2, younger brother. I hated him. Anyway, I think my uncle helped me a lot by telling me to slow down about 5 times. I finally did.
I think that's pretty good. Let's each one of us, you touch on it. Corey, you go. What is something as you've aged that you've picked up on that something very key to you? Like what is a tactic, or you know, maybe it's slowing down or whatever.
Not to piggyback off of what Dell just said, but it ties into that, you know, patience, and not only in hunting and tracking, but in life. And I think that's one of the valuable things tracking has taught me is patience, you know, and that is a skill that applies to all aspects of my life. And it's sometimes it means slowing down, sometimes it means waiting. It can mean a variety of things, but having patience. And one of the things I've learned is like studying these big bulls and big bucks. They're incredibly patient, right? If you spook a deer and the deer hangs up and it's not sure what you are, and you know it's there, it will wait all day for you to make the move.
Well, I agree with you.
And because
when you say all day, it seems like all day, right? I did this. I actually timed this. I didn't tell anybody, but I timed one out west this year that did that. And that doe stood there for 5 minutes before she moved.
they're far more patient than us.
Far more patient.
And you know, they've got all the time in the world, right? It's life or death for them. So like they know patience. They're very patient animals. I've had it happen with bulls, elk, deer. Like if they're not sure, they'll stand there and they go, okay, I may not have the advantage, like, you know, against this threat, but I can outweight him. And if that's what's going to save my life, and they'll do that. And we don't hunt like it's life or death, right? We hunt like, oh man, I've been waiting forever. You know, it's been 2 minutes. I'm just going to go. And you take that step and it's gone, you know, like
Yeah.
So, and then, also the different aspect of patience is knowing when to push it, knowing when to dial it back. Like, it's a long season. Is this the day to go all out? Like, patience over the long term, and just using that to make good decisions versus being hasty about something like, oh, I want to hunt here, and I want to hunt this specific area, maybe a specific deer, whatever, and you're just going to go there even though it's not the right conditions. Whereas patience would have taught you, hey, go hunt somewhere else, go scout somewhere else, wait until the conditions are favorable for you to hunt that area. And that is patience, even though it might not seem like patience. Patience doesn't always mean just sitting and waiting, which none of us like to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, but I guess. Yeah.
Casey says, no, I don't want to be a part of this one. Brent, what do you got?
I have nothing to add. Exactly what Dell and Corey said. 100%. And patience is key to the whole thing. I messed up on a deer this year. It just exactly what Corey just said. I knew that deer was just ahead of me. There was no question in my mind. I knew he was there, but it was getting to be 3:30 in the afternoon. I'd finally caught up to him, and I rushed. And I still had plenty of time, and I pushed the deer out of there. And it's funny, over the years, over the last 3, 4, 5 years, I've taken my phone, and when I come home at night, I'll make notes of things that I can do better. And patience will be every single year. Patience will be on my list of things, and it's weekly. So
Make sure you leave me that little black book, would you?
well, hopefully it's going to be a few years before I can leave you anything.
I would say that you guys are, if I had to throw my opinion in there, you guys are spot on with it. I would say, for me, it's trust your gut, right? Because usually that's spot on. And when you think you're close, you're close. And that goes to that patience thing. It also goes back to, like, I don't want to call. I want him to make the first move. I don't want to make the first move, because when I make the first move, he's already got the upper hand on me. Patience is king.
Yeah.
Trust your gut.
Yep.
Another thing it's important to mention from like a tactical standpoint is marksmanship, shooting. Like, when we've all talked about this, but we never emphasize it, and most people don't. There's a lot of people that don't even shoot the rifle prior to deer season. Maybe many people might just fire a round or two to make sure it's zeroed, but we don't, or I personally do not shoot enough. Like, it should be year round to develop all those fundamentals and principles. And one of the things that I did that I think might help me with that is I shoot a 7600 pump 30-06.
Yeah.
But I just picked up I believe it's a 572. It's the Remington's 22 caliber version of the 7600 pump.
Really?
So the mechanisms are the same.
Yeah,
I put peep
great
sight on
idea.
it. So I have a cost-effective way
Yeah.
that I can shoot year-round, and just to maintain those, training those reflexes, so that, and I think that's going to help. You can't shoot enough.
Yeah. When I was younger, the Derby Line Fish and Game Club and it still is a big club. We had a running deer target there, and I was probably 20-ish, and I kind of helped. My father-in-law at the time was the president of the club, so I had to help.
Was it metal?
No, it was like a plywood cutout, and we had a bunker like here, and we started out with bicycle wheels with the pedals of a bicycle on one end, and the deer was a normal size that we cut out. It was obviously a buck, and back then we did have radios, but not the communication we had today. But the deer went out, and it didn't go around and everything. And later on, we put a wheel so it went around the wheel and came back. But we started just with it going over, then we had to pull it back. We didn't pull it back that way, but pedal it back, But it was very popular, and we used to have these turkey shoots. And I don't know, I just wrote this up in the new book that I'm writing. I don't know, why would we ever call these turkey shoots? I mean, no, they were chicken shoots. But you shot trap, and you could shoot with the rifle, at regular targets, and then the running deer target. And well, we had, I want to say hundreds, but let's just say 100 people there. It was very popular. I used to go up there all the time. I went up there with a friend or two, generally a friend, and then we would shoot at it. We belonged to a club. Anybody could go do it. Well, we would crank that thing out with your bicycles. Somebody's got to be down there, and if there's not a big crowd around, we'd holler pull, And so when it went out, if you pull down on the cable, the deer would go like this. That separated the men from the boys. And I learned when it came down, there's a second there. Not while she's going up, you probably will miss it. And it'll make a difference. And sometimes we'd fool with each other, it'd be going along like that. Then you'd pull it again. And I shot so much. We couldn't afford, back then, even it wasn't expensive. But so we started shooting our 22s at it. And I think it really made me a better shot, and so we start with putting your gun on your shoulder, on your sling, and walking sideways, and then we wouldn't say pull, and so we would bet things like, as I got older, it was a beer, or something, and so then all of a sudden it went, and so you had to pull your gun off your shoulder, turn around, and come up, and you keep score. By the way, the deer had a bullseye on it, and there was no others like along the back. We didn't get fancy with that, but man, I shot a lot, and I'm really proud of this. Looking back, my father-in-law at the time was proud of me, but he asked me to stop shooting. But there was a guy came. I think I might have put this in the book, so I hope I'm not reiterating something we did before.
You're fine. Okay,
so he came over from the other side of the state. I don't want to point fingers here. So he was a nice guy, but he was a kind of a braggart. And he came over to shoot one day at one of the chicken shoots. And I was pretty good at it, and I was better than anybody else, but I practiced a lot. We went up there all the time. And so we were shooting, and we tied. And by the way, it's 3 shots. It was always 3 shots. And then you down there, they would score it, You got a 3 and 2 5s or something. So we're doing that, and we tied. And he turned around to me. It was just maybe from me to you, because we were down out of about 40 shooters down to us. And he said, "How proud of yourself? You want to go $10? This was 60 years ago, And I said, "No, I can't do that." And he said, said something like a chicken or something, And this guy named Hank Sanders, he's passed away now, but he got hurt really bad in a car accident. He only had one eye, but he was a very nice guy that we knew, and he was standing there. He said, "I'll take that bet." He said, "Cool." I got the pressure now. And I said something like, "Hank, no, don't do that." He said, "Turn around and shoot." So we pulled him out again, and we tied again. And everybody's there, and everybody knew me, and they were kind of cheering. And he said, "You want to double that?" And Hank said, "I'll double that." And oh, Jesus. I didn't want to lose, and so we shot off again, 3 shots again. And they're reading the things back, and the guy got mad thinking they were cheating. And so he said something in front of everybody, and everybody had just got quiet, and number one, he accused me of that, but he accused the whole club because the guy's down there. He wasn't from up here, you know. And so he said, I want to shoot one more time, 3 shots, and we'll check the scores. And there was a big moan in the crowd. And Hank says, yeah, we'll do that. I said, jeez. We did it again, but we put the tape over the holes, and I won again. And I was so happy. It's so relieved, you know. But backing up, I just say I wasn't a good shot until I shot a lot, and I shot a lot. And then my father-in-law asked me to stop shooting because it's not. Some of the guys aren't even signing up, and you had to pay $1 to shoot because the money went to the club. And he just was really nice about it, and I knew he was right. And so I used to shoot a handgun an awful lot, and 22. And so I had I forget it was a high standard 9 shots in it. Sitting down off my legs like this, I shot at that running deer target, and I got good at it. And I'll tell you this on my son's life. My father could throw cans up in the air, and I'd pull the thing out of my holster and pull it up and double hand it and hit it, and sometimes 2 times, and once in a while 3 times. and my Uncle Gordon was a wicked handgun shot. He taught me some things. So I started shooting with the running deer target with a handgun, and I didn't win all the time, but I started winning some. And I was pretty proud of myself, and then my father-in-law, after one of those times that I did win, he said, if you want to shoot that gun anymore, you're going to stand up like the rest of the men. And I never won anymore.
Yeah.
But he knew what he was doing. He was trying to get me.
Yep.
Yeah. But I guess I'm telling you this because of what you said. Wasn't it you that said you shot with your 22 a lot? Mm-hmm. Would I have been any good at that if I hadn't shot all that much? I always even go up there with my wife at the time was, and she would shoot with me. And then as time went on, that thing's been replaced now. They have a really good one, although I haven't shot up there for several years, but I heard it's really, really cool. Huh. And they built another one. I haven't seen it, and I haven't shot at it. But I think it doesn't take a lot of money to make one of those things, and maybe somebody that has a gravel pit somewhere ought to put one up for their children to learn on. I mean, you go to the shooting range and lean on...
rest.
Yeah. And then they miss a deer at 30 yards, and they don't know why. Well, and the old thing, we didn't do it a lot, but quite a few times up at my house on the hill there by where the targets are, we'd roll the tire down with the inside in it, and did that quite a bit.
It's good practice.
The boys got better at it. Yeah. Yep. And another thing I think is really good is I shot trap a lot, and I went to college. I shot trap on the college trap team, and then you wonder why you can't hear. I'm this far away, and nobody wore any stuff. This is 60 years ago. And now I can't hear. Mm-hmm. But anyway, you learn a lot shooting trap, an awful lot about swinging your gun with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hand-eye coordination.
Exactly.
Best baseball players in the world don't just step into the box and start swinging, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So I don't think I would have ever been a good shot if I hadn't practiced so much as I did.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I got a question, and this is for all of you. And it may take you a minute to come up with this. Adam asks, what's the most unique thing you've ever found or seen in the wilderness? Do you have something off the top of your head that makes you...
Oh, my God. You don't want me to start answering that with my Alaska escapades.
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Shoot, yeah.
Oh, my God. I even brought some pictures of... we'll bring out later.
Yeah.
A friend of mine I made up in Alaska. I didn't even know him, and I had... I was in the Union, but up there I wasn't in that local. And I happened to just room accidentally. I was above the Arctic Circle, and I roomed with a guy that was steward in the union, and he said, if you're thinking of two friends and I already bought 45 acres of land in Delta Junction, 15 acres apiece. And so this is what I want to be, where I want to be. And I found out in a couple of years it was not where I wanted to be, so I sold it. But I had this friend that I made there that we had become residents, mainly because when the pipeline ended, if you were a resident, you probably still had a job somewhere. But if you were from outsider, you weren't going to work again up there. So I did that. Well, one thing led to another, and this guy I was going to go sheep hunting with backed out on me, and I had put in for my R&R. It's like being in the Army there. And so my foreman, I told him that I wasn't going, so I'm going to just keep working. He said, geez, there's a guy down there, way down there. See that guy with the green and black checkered coat? That's not popular out west, really, very big. It's a Johnson Woolens thing. So I said, yeah. He said, the same thing just happened to him. He was going moose hunting, and some guy, he's from back somewhere. Where are you from? I said, Vermont. Yeah, he's back there somewhere. So I was running my grader down the road, and I stopped to introduce myself, and we got to know each other, met in the chow hall, decided we don't know each other, and we're going to go hunting together. I just talked to him about 2 or 3 days ago. He's still in Alaska. Great guy, all kinds of stories I could tell you. But we go on a sheep hunt, and we're flown in. Actually, I got some stuff to show you later. So we fly into this little lake, and we set up a little pup tent stuff, and we hiked around. And in Alaska, and I imagine it might be the same out west, you can't fly into a spike camp and spot game and hunt that day. But flying in, he made some loops around, and we saw sheep, Dall sheep. Oh, we are fired up. So we didn't go hunting, and the next day we kind of busied around the camp and did things get better, and the next day we went around this little lake, and we started hiking up in, and we'd gone quite a long ways, and this was years ago. It was 1975. We didn't have a big moose herd. I don't know much about moose, but we had got moose tags. And all of a sudden, we see this really big bull moose way up ahead of us, and there's hardly any trees there. And so anyway, we look at each other and go ahead, so Willie shoots the moose. Well, it was really stupid because we had sheep hunts in front of us, and maybe we're never going to have them again. Okay, we get the moose, and then we got a lot of work in front of us, as you know, and we're moving. We had what you call blow bags to keep the flies off the meat, and so we had those, and we got his thing all done, and it took us half a day, and we took each of us with our backpacks a big amount of meat and started off the mountain, and we went like 150 yards, and all of a sudden there's a big bull. You guys just hung it up at my camp. Mm-hmm. That's the one. And I'm looking at it, and he's looking at me, and we're going, no. He can't go sheep hunting anyway. He said, I guess I can go up there with you, but I can't go. Oh, yeah, you can. And we're talking back and forth. You shot a bull moose, but you can still shoot your sheep. Oh, yeah. Well, what are you going to do? Well, it's going to take us 3 days to get all this meat off. Anyway, I shoot the moose. And we never went sheep hunting. we brought it all down to our campsite, and the pictures I'll show you. We got a pup tent. As a 3-man pup tent means it's good for 1 man. And we were friends. We were real good friends in 8 days. And you know what? Like the day we brought the first batch of meat down, which I have pictures of the meat in these bags, and so we're not really stupid. We know better than put it by the camp. So we took ropes and we pulled some of it up in the trees. but about from me to you, that was stupid. And then we ran out of ropes, so in the next day we put it in the little lake that we flew in and weighted it down with rocks, so we're not totally stupid. And about the third night, I guess, of course, we were eating well, and the third night by the way, the sun's up quite a long time, but we were working our butts off, hauling that meat off. And so we're in our little tent, and we both had fallen asleep. And then all of a sudden we heard this, sort of like huffing and stuff. There was a brown bear, a grizzly, outside the tent, and we could honestly not feel it, but hear the steps and stuff. And he was going all around, and he come right over anyway, I got to back up a little bit. I used to bring my rifle in the little tent, put it between us, and Willie would laugh at me, So I wake up, but apparently a few seconds after he did, and then I can hear this kind of noisy thing, and then it went where we had left a couple of dishes, tin ones, and knocked those over. We know it's not a woodpecker, this thing is. And so I reach around and I want my rifle, and I can't find it, So real quietly, not as quiet as this, I said, Willie, he goes, yeah. I said, where's my gun? He said, I got it. And so we laid in there. So anyway, this bear at one point came over to the tent and put his nose on the tent. And it was you could smell him, you could hear him breathing, and his nose went along the tent. And Willie's got the gun back like this, What's he gonna do? We were scared. I don't scare easy, and I've been through hell and back a lot, and Brent knows it. And I think I found out I could hold my breath for 5 minutes. And so finally the bear leaves, but is he gone? It's dark now, We're scared. So we finally come out of there with flashlights, and we thought maybe hollering loud things and stuff. And we came out and got the other rifle. We did not go back in that tent to sleep. And we took care, all that meat we had hanging up, we put it all in the lake. And the bear did not come back to but afterwards we're looking at the prints where he went down to the lake, over our footprints in the sand. It was a serious bear. I was probably as scared then as I've ever been, and for quite a period of time. Even when we got out of the tent with the bear, where was the bear? And my heart pounding away, and so that's
pretty good.
Yeah.
Corey, what about you? You got anything that stands out?
I mean, not like that.
It's pretty tough. Pretty hard to follow that up.
Yeah.
You were talking unique, something that just is odd.
Adam said unique, or it could be cool, it could be interesting, could be frightening.
I mean, the thing that I tell more people about this story is up in Ontario when we were hunting back on a gated road. Picked this area on Google Earth back in the day. This was, I don't know how many years ago, probably 15 years ago. Picked this spot on Google Earth before we went out there, drive out there, brought bicycles, rode my bicycle back in 5 miles on this road, started hiking back into the woods, and get back in there quite a ways. And all of a sudden I look and there's a guy walking at me, and he's wearing a Beagle jacket. So I'm like, what? How is this possible? A Vermonter. Yeah. He sees me, he comes walking over to me, and I had a Beagle jacket on at the time, and we got talking, and I was like, how is this possible that two people from Vermont would run into one another this far back in the woods? I mean, 26 hours from home. Yeah. And this guy asked me, he says, where are you from? I said, Milton, Vermont. And he goes, oh, I'm from Stowe, Vermont. He said, my son's dating a girl from Milton, Vermont. I said, well, my daughter's dating a guy from Stowe.
Oh my God!
It was Joey's dad.
It was.
Yeah.
It was Joey's dad.
That's how those two met.
Yeah, that's how we met.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Middle of nowhere.
Middle of nowheres, and it was sort of funny. He says, I had my stand. I was going to put a stand out there on the edge of this swamp. After we talked for must have been a half an hour. We left. I continued on, and I started dragging my stand up, and it was making all kinds of racket. I know what it was. It sounded like a deer was fighting. They were fighting, and I look, and here comes a 10-pointer.
No way.
Come right out. I grabbed my gun, shot the deer. Joey's dad hadn't gone far enough yet, and he helped me drag all day.
What a story, huh?
But what are the odds? It's just amazes me how small this world really is. And you talked earlier in this, I guess we all talked earlier in the story, how everybody becomes friends through hunting.
Yeah.
And for this guy, I mean, just had met him, an hour before, and we ended up being together all day. And next thing you know, my daughter made this decision to marry this guy, which was not the wisest, but
Let's change this. Casey, you got anything? Nothing? Come on. You must have something. You can't think of anything. Well, at least put those things back on. Brent gave them to you.
Should we take a break?
I guess I could tell you another one about being afraid. Well, I'm just using.
Yeah.
I don't know if Brent told you, but I'm writing another book.
Yeah.
I was-
Casey, put those things on.
About 289 pages right now, and pictures and stuff. I got a long ways to go, and I got to stop, and so I won't work on it again until next year because I got to go back to work and everything. So, but I've had a lot of fun doing it, and my wife hears me out in the kitchen where I'm working, and I'll be laughing at something I'm writing about that I forgot about. So I have, it's not all hunting at all this time. So interspersed in there a little bit. My bear encounters, that sometimes you don't have enough time to be scared at all. Afterwards, you go, whew, I seem to attract him in the damnedest ways sometimes, and then not knowing the outcome. And I was going up in this woods with a friend that we hadn't had any luck anywhere, so we drove a long ways in Vermont to try a new place, and we got up in there, and it was crunchy, just a little snow, bad crunchy. We decided we split up, and we were going to go like apart and then go up on this mountain ridge and then hunt towards each other, and then whether we ran into each other or not, just hunt back down. And so we parted, and I went a little ways. I went 50 yards, and there was a big tree that had blown over, and the roots and stuff were over here. And I stepped up on it. It was really cold, and I had my hands in my pockets, and I was just looking up ahead of me, and I glanced over, and I could see Alan walking away from me. And I looked down to see where I was going to step, and I see a whole bunch of dirt about from here to that. The stools right there, so 8 feet. And there's a hole there in the roots, but you're dealing with somebody that isn't too smart, I guess. So I stepped off the log, turned around, and then I bent down, and my gun's still on my shoulder, and I bent down to look in the hole. And the first thing I see is a bear's head, and it was like, I shouldn't do this. I'm trying to move around here too much. So I go to, I see the bear's head, so I start to step back just a little bit, and I'm talking to him like, hey, I'll go away. You stay there, okay? I'm going to leave. And so I start backing up a little bit, and he moved his head out a little bit, but now I'm pulling my gun off my shoulder, slow though, no fast moves. And I get it down here. It's on the wrong side of me. I'm not left-handed, And then I'm still talking to the bear, and I get probably from here to Joey away. So for those that are listening, say 10 feet,
Yeah.
And now I switched the gun around like this, but I had making no fast moves, And I'm still talking to the bear. Okay, I'll go away. You stay there. And so then I turn around like this, and then the bear does not come out any farther. I can see a little bit of its chest. It looked like a pretty good-sized bear, and I'm not going to shoot it because I had shot 7 bear, and I never want to shoot another one. And, I wonder if Alan would like this bear. So I back up some more really slow, and when I'm about 25 feet or something from it, I decided to holler at the bear to see what it would do, and I hollered at it, and it didn't do anything. Then I hollered louder, and it didn't do anything. So then I turned my head, and I hollered up. I could see him up there. It was about going out of sight. Alan. And so he did hear me, and he turned around. But when I hollered, I turned right back around. And so I'm thinking, he probably thinks I jumped a deer at him, So I turned my head back, and I can see him looking at me way up there. And I said, Alan, come down here. There's a bear here. And I turned around, and a bear came out of that hole straight at me, fast. And I shot one shot. I tripped over something. I started to back up. I fell down, and I emptied my .44 Magnum in that deer, all in about 10 feet. And the bear, I will tell you this on my wife's life, I pulled my legs back when it went by me, and I shot that last shot right there, and I pulled my legs back, and he went by me. And he was shot 5 times. And I'll shorten this story just to tell you that we chased that. We never got the bear. I put 5 .44 shells, but obviously never put one in his heart. We ran out of blood. It got warmed up, started raining, and we went back the next day and hunted for it and never got that bear. But you don't have time to be scared under something like that. Then afterwards, I get back onto my knees, and the bears run away, and I'm taking deep breaths, and maybe I better load my gun again. No, bears don't come back.
That's a pretty cool story.
Pretty scary.
Yeah.
What do you got, Joe?
What do I got?
First story like that. I mean, unique.
I've got one that I don't know. I don't know how true it is or not or whatever, but
It's okay. Half of mine aren't. You go ahead.
that's awesome, Dale. It was probably, 15 years ago or so. I was bow hunting this spot. Absolutely dynamite bow hunting spot. It's about a mile back, apple orchard on the opposite side of this swamp. Dead silent. You can't hear nothing. You can't hear houses. You can't hear cars. There's nothing. It's like one of those bow hunting spots that is just very peaceful, what you're out there for. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting there, and I could hear what sounded like a little kid talking. And it was a long ways away. You know what I mean? It sounded to me like it was a long ways away. And it kept doing it, and I could tell it was a girl, and then it stopped. And I got down out of the tree that night at dark, and the hair on the back of my neck just like raised. Like I felt like I was being watched. And I never made it. I never booked it so fast to that truck before. Like, I was scared shitless.
What was it?
It was probably, 6 months later. Guy that owns the abutting property says, he knew I was bow hunting out there. And he says, just don't go digging around out there. He said, somebody from my family way back, late 1800s was buried out there. A little girl was buried. She apparently had the plague. And I was like, holy shit. Like, it all kind of
Wow.
I don't know if I don't know, but.
You'll never be able to.
And I never will go back there and bow hunt either. Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had some strange scenarios like that. A couple years ago in Kansas, just middle of nowhere, couple miles out, right? There's big tracts of land, a couple miles out, walking onto a gravesite. It's like from 18 something.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Just a random gravesite, middle of nowhere.
Hey, let me ask all of you, because you hunt country where we run into moose so much, not quite as much now, but, Have you ever or heard of a friend or anybody be charged by a moose? You have.
Me too.
I've been charged.
You have. Well, then that's good because once in a while somebody doesn't believe me. But when I was an inspector on the power line project, I was all over. For 6 years I worked from the Canadian border to Massachusetts, and we were basically in the woods or farmland all the time. And so you know where Madison Brook is? I bet you do. Near that, where the power line goes down through, I went up that road, and I had a transit on my shoulder. And I was walking up the road, actually not far from Madison Brook itself, but up west of the power line. Excuse me. And this bull moose, not a big one, kind of a medium-sized one, comes walking down the road, that long gate. And so there was a big bank on this side and some trees and stuff here, and then a brook. And so I just wave my arms and say something stupid like, "Hey, go away, moose. I got to come up through here." And the moose stood there and looked at me. And so I'm saying some other stupid things to it, and he doesn't go. Then all of a sudden, just like this, he starts running right straight at me. And I never saw that ever before. And so I ran to the right over into the woods. There was thick woods there just before the Madison Brook, and I ran into the trees in there, and it's a bull. He can't get into it, and he's standing out there going back and forth like that. You never get scared until it calms down, and he can't get in there, and I'm looking around, what do I do if he can't get in here? And after a while, he wandered off, and I never had it happen again. And then years later, I took my wife's Jeep Cherokee, and I went to Maine. To be honest with you, it was the first time I ever went hunting in Maine. I went alone, and I had a sleeping bag and stuff in the back of the Cherokee. I didn't have a tent or anything. And I only went from some topo maps and tried to figure out where, I didn't do any scouting or anything. And so I went hunting that day around this area, and there was all kinds of deer sign. I saw, 2 or 3 deer or something, and boy, I saw a really nice deer track, So I figured I found this was what I'm looking for. So I came out of there. There was an old logging road, and I couldn't go any farther because the beaver had dammed up the road. And there was a pretty good beaver pond there. So I had to be real careful walking across the beaver dam, And so I slept there that night on the other side of the thing, and I got up early, probably didn't sleep well, and I ate a little something, and I grabbed my gun and got out of the Jeep and started to walk across that beaver dam. And, we got the flashlight shining down in front of me. You don't walk very fast on a deep beaver dam. Excuse me. And I went about maybe not halfway across it, and I heard some splashing, and I looked over to my left, and it was basically still dark, but you could see fairly good. And there was a bull and a cow over there. And then I kept looking at it, and I'm talking to it like I do things. You stay there, and I'll just go over here. And then just like that, he just takes off, comes running across that pond. But I yelled and waved my hands, but he was still coming, so I turned around, and I almost fell about 5 times, but I made it to my Jeep, and he was only 20, 25 feet behind me. I glanced back, and I ran to the driver's side door, and I grabbed the door handle while I'd locked my Jeep up. And now he's like 20 feet, and I run around the back of the Jeep, and I just tossed my gun to the side, and I was going to dive under the Jeep. I mean, he can't get me there. And so he's on one side of my Jeep over there, and he's going back and forth with his head back and forth, like 5 feet from my Jeep, and I'm over there, and I'm all ready to dive under the Jeep, but he doesn't come after me. So don't let anybody tell you. 2 instances. Now I hear it from 1 or 2 of you. Mm-hmm. And that'll scare you.
Yeah. Yeah, I've had it happen.
Really?
Yeah, middle to the end of May. Usually looking for antlers, get in between a cow and a calf is not a good situation to be in.
I can see that, yeah.
Especially if you've got a dog, right, that do not like cow moose and do not like dogs when they've got
Okay.
little ones.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, I've had that happen. And then I was, back in the day when there was moose around town, I was in a swamp and just trudging through it, and I got in between her little one there, and it was like middle of the summer, and she took off after me. I took off like a bat out of hell. I wasn't, yeah. There's more people killed in Alaska by cow moose than there is by grizzlies.
I've heard something like that.
Yeah, they're vicious.
Well, I was walking up that power line one day, again with a transit on my shoulder, and I, looked down at where you're walking. We'd already had the power line right away, but we had no structures up. And I was going up to do some work all alone, and just happened to glance around. I looked over to my right, and there was 2 cubs there on the ground, and they weren't far from me. And I started looking around, and over on the other side of the cut, it was 150 feet from me, I'm sure, but there's the mother bear over there. So I started talking again. Hey, okay, I'm not going this way anymore. I'm going to back up. So I didn't turn around. I've always felt that's the wrong thing to do. That shows fear. So I end up talking to the bear. I don't know what I said, but I just keep talking. I'm going to go away, and I work my way away from her. And then I'm down quite a little ways, and I look around. I just wanted to see where the cubs were. I look over, and they're up a tree, but they're only up about 8 feet, And so, curious as I was, I kept going away till I could still see the tree. And then she came over to the tree, and she was looking up at it, and I never heard a noise or anything, but she must have made a little noise. And the little cubs came down, and then they got behind her, and she went back where they were going. And so I've had an instance with the moose that I just described, and now this bear, a few days apart. I have a .44 Magnum handgun, and I never went up in that country again alone. Actually, I carried it a lot with the survey crew. After we were in there with equipment, stuff never happened again, but I said, wow, the moose and the bear don't like me here.
Yeah. Thought it was a transit.
Corey, you've got a story. You don't want to talk about it? Your bear story
Which one?
with Gracie.
Um,
Was that last year?
no, it was a few years ago. This thing's getting long here now.
Just tell your story and we'll quit it.
All right, so a few years ago in the spring, I was shed hunting in Maine with my dog, and I was traveling from one spot to another, and it was getting late, getting dark, and I was tired, so I ended up just kind of going down a side road in unfamiliar country, and I threw the cot out I went to the end of this road, threw the cot out right under the stars, and I was sleeping that way on the cot with my dog, and she woke me up. She was growling, and I just figured, yeah, there's bears in the area, pretty expected. So we had to move camp inside the truck just so that she wouldn't growl and keep me up all night. So it was a rough night sleeping cramped in the truck. I got up in the morning, and I was cooking breakfast on the tailgate, making all kinds of noise, everything. And as it got light, I looked, and I could see it was a pretty good sign as far as browse and everything. I thought, hey, this is as good a spot as any to look for moose antlers, so I'm here. Why don't I just take a poke around? And I walked. It ended up being 130 yards into the woods from the truck. So these bears heard me all morning. They knew I was there. 130 yards from the truck, and came into a grassy area about the size of this living room here, maybe five yards across, all matted down, 3 huge piles of bear scat, and immediately Gracie, my dog, takes off. And when she took off, she barked, and I heard claws in a tree, and I running after her, and I looked up, and I could see this little cub about 30 feet up in this tree, just holding on, and Gracie's running right to the base of the tree. So I'm
Really?
running and screaming, and as she runs at the base of the tree, the sow was hiding behind the other side of it. So Gracie comes around, and that sow comes around the other side, and Gracie turns to get away from that sow, and I'm closing the distance. I'm full running as fast as I can, and the sow with her mouth open jumps with her arms kind of spread open, claws out, grabs Gracie by her lower back, and it just flattens my dog. My dog's a black lab, and just flattens her, and was about to bear down on her neck with her mouth.
Yeah.
And that's when I was almost on top of the bear. I was gonna wrestle it.
Just gonna beat it up.
Put it in a chokehold, something. Jiu-jitsu, do what I could. And so the bear leapt off of Gracie and ran off, and I grabbed Gracie quickly, and there was some blood. I didn't know where she was hit, but I couldn't see any wounds.
Yeah.
But I just, when I grabbed her, there was some blood on my hands. So I get back to the truck. I look her over, and her back was all tender, and she had puncture. So anyway, I blew out the struts, getting out of the woods.
Getting her to the vet.
To get to the vet, and just destroyed the suspension on the truck.
Yeah.
And get to the vet, they shave her, and she had she had 10, like 8 or 10, like perfect punctures from that bear's claws, just where it grabbed their lower back and pushed her down, and they just flushed them. They weren't lacerations; they were punctures, so it was clean. I mean, as far as conflict with the bear goes, it was as good as you could hope for. If that bear had bit her or, raked her claws, it could have been very bad. But so she recovered from that. The hair grew back.
Well, I don't think we're going to top that.
We avoid those situations now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, ready to cut this one short?
Cut it long.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next one.